The story begins by showing a little child whose name is Minho. A short while ago, a terrible plane crash had taken place in this area. As a result, the entire place was completely devastated. Minho is here searching for his parents, but although he survived this accident, his parents died. At that very moment, he sees a girl there. And this girl was basically around his age. She asks Minho for help. But whenever Minho goes to help her, the girl suddenly starts to strangely vanish into thin air. And seeing this leaves him very surprised. After this incident, quite a few years pass. Minho has now grown up a lot. At present, he works at a car shop. From childhood, Minho has always been a very hard-working boy. The car shop where Minho works is owned by a man named Teshua. Teshua likes Minho very much, and since Minho had no parents, he loves him just like his own son, and Minho in return considers him like his own father. Since Minho was so hard-working, Teshua was very satisfied with his work, because Minho did every single task perfectly. As a result, Teshua tells Minho that he wants to appoint him as the manager of his second car shop. But Minho replies that he still doesn't feel worthy enough to become the manager of a car shop. Still, Teshua insists on giving him the responsibility of being manager. But Minho says that when he feels worthy enough, he will come and tell him himself. Meanwhile, there are many other boys working in this car shop along with Minho. Among them is one boy whose name is Kaneda. Kaneda doesn't like Minho at all. In fact, he envies him. Because the shop owner, Teshua, gives the most importance to Minho out of all of them. He even loves him the most. That's why, along with Kaneda, some of the other employees here also don't like Minho. Today, when Minho comes and stands in front of Kaneda, Kaneda pushes him and walks away, but Minho was a very calm-natured person, so he doesn't say anything here. However, because Kaneda pushed him, the screen of his phone broke, so after finishing work, he goes to a mobile repair shop in the city to get his phone fixed. The name of this girl is Sujan. Sujan works at this shop. Then Minho shows her his phone and says he wants to put in a new display. After checking the phone's condition, Sujan tells him that his phone is pretty old. As a result, fixing it will be very difficult. Still, Sujan works hard and repairs the phone. This makes Minho very happy. Later, when he comes back home with his phone, he keeps thinking about Sujan over and over again. In fact, at first sight, he had already started to like Sujan, so that night, he keeps thinking about Sujan the entire time. The next morning, Minho is going to work by bus. After a while, when he looks at the hand of the person sitting in front of him, he sees that the man's hand is slowly disappearing into the air. Here we learn that ever since Minho was caught in the plane crash as a child, a strange kind of superpower developed in him, and that is, ever since that day, he can see the time of a person's death. In other words, just shortly before someone dies, he realizes that the person is going to die very soon. By looking at the man inside the bus, Minho also understands that this man will die very soon. But there's nothing he can do here, because every person has to die, and he himself is also a part of this rule. So Minho doesn't worry too much about this and goes straight to his workplace. After he arrives at work, the owner's wife talks to Minho. She says to him, "You're a capable young man. If we could give you the responsibility of manager at our shop, we would be very happy. So I'm asking you, please agree to Teshua's request. You're like our child, so why are you objecting so much? Now tell me, will you keep my word?" Minho nods in agreement and says he will think about it. After that, Minho finishes his work and passes by that mobile repair shop. On the way, he looks inside the shop for Sujan, but today he doesn't see her. Just then, an unfamiliar boy bumps into Minho. When Minho looks at the boy, he sees that about half of the boy's body is invisible. In other words, the boy will die very soon too. Minho starts following the boy because he feels the boy might die any moment and he wants to see it. Then, as the boy crosses the street, a car suddenly hits him. The boy dies instantly. Seeing this, Minho is deeply pained in his heart because even though he knew the boy would die, he couldn't do anything for him. The next morning, Minho goes to the owner's wife and asks her, "Auntie, tell me, if you ever got a power that let you know the time of a person's death, what would you do?" Auntie replies, "I would never want a power like that, which would let me know in advance about people's bad times." After finishing his conversation with Auntie, Minho notices that his phone's display is broken again. He goes back to the mobile repair shop to fix it. Minho finds Sujan there and becomes very happy. Then Minho tells her about the problem with his phone. But when Sujan reaches for the phone, Minho becomes very frightened because he sees that a large part of Sujan's hand has become invisible. Will Sujan die? Minho is terrified and immediately steps outside. Outside, Minho thinks he has to do something for Sujan. He won't let her die. He goes back into the shop and after work asks Sujan to meet him today. Although Sujan is reluctant at first, she agrees to his request. Minho tells her they should meet at a coffee shop next to the shop. Minho goes to that coffee shop and waits. After finishing her work, Sujan comes to the coffee shop. When Minho looks at Sujan's hand at the coffee shop, he sees that her hand is completely healed. This surprises him and also makes him happy. Then Sujan asks why Minho wanted to meet her. At first, Minho was going to tell her that he can sense the time of people's deaths, but he immediately thinks a stranger wouldn't believe such a thing. So he apologizes for wasting her time and leaves. But while walking away from the coffee shop, Minho suddenly feels a severe pain in his chest. The pain is intense. Still, Minho steadies himself and goes back home. The next morning, Minho goes to the shop owner, Teshwa, and with full confidence says that now he is completely ready to become the car shop's manager. Teshwa is very happy to hear this, but his wife is a bit surprised. Where did Minho suddenly get so much confidence? In any case, Minho is now willing to take on the manager's duties, and they are very pleased. Auntie, happy, asks Minho. What happened? Why such a sudden change in you? Minho smiles and replies, nothing special, I just felt like it, so I agreed. After Auntie leaves, Minho sits down to work. Right then, Sujan arrives. Seeing Sujan, Minho says in surprise, hey, how did you get here? And how did you get my address? Sujan says she found it from the address of their mobile repair shop. She has something very important to tell him. Minho takes her to the shop's office and makes coffee with his own hands. A little while later, Sujan shows him a newspaper and says, last night there was a terrible explosion at a factory in our area, and many workers were killed. People who were walking in front of the factory also died. I walk on that road every day, so if you hadn't called me to the coffee shop yesterday, I might have died too. Hearing this, Minho understands why Sujan's hand had been healed at the coffee shop. Then Minho tells Sujan everything. That is, he tells her about his power. Sujan readily believes him. Minho is very happy about this and thinks to himself, at least someone exists who believes what he says. After that, when Minho entered the car shop, he saw Teshua scolding Kaneda heavily because Kaneda had taken a customer's car without telling anyone and went on a date with his girlfriend. Teshua got extremely angry about this, and Kaneda also got mad and misbehaved with the owner. At one point, Kaneda, in anger, threw something toward Minho. As a result, Teshua slapped Kaneda and threw him out of the shop. Right then, Minho saw that one of Teshua's hands was slowly disappearing. Minho got really panicked because he thought of Teshua like his own father, so he couldn't accept Teshua's death. Minho kept thinking all day that maybe, just like he saved Sujan, he might be able to save Teshua too. At night, Minho asked Teshua to go have dinner with him at a restaurant, and Teshua agreed. While they were walking down the street toward the restaurant, Minho's eyes were completely fixed on Teshua. Minho noticed that Teshua's whole body was slowly disappearing, and it scared him a lot. Just then, Kaneda appeared, holding a rod, and was about to hit Teshua, but Minho somehow saved him. As a result, Teshua wasn't seriously harmed, but Minho again felt that same pain in his chest. From the excessive pain, Minho fainted and was immediately taken to the hospital. When he regained consciousness, he saw Auntie standing by his side. Minho then asked, has Kaneda been given any punishment? Auntie said, Kaneda realized his mistake and repented, so he was forgiven. The hospital doctor, Mr. Kim, looked at Minho's reports and asked, did you have any illness before? Minho said, no, I don't have any illness. The doctor then said, maybe because of overwork, you're having chest pain. Don't worry, if you take rest for a few days, you'll be fine. For now, nothing has shown up in your reports. While Minho was sitting in the waiting area, he saw a little child walking with his mother, but that child's body was also slowly disappearing. Standing nearby, Dr. Kim then asked Minho, do you see people disappear before they die? Minho was shocked because how did the doctor know this? Dr. Kim took Minho to the hospital roof and told him that he too could see people disappear before they die. This power is called Fortuna's eye. Very few people in the world have this ability, meaning a small number of people like us can sense the time of someone's death. It is a special power given by the Creator, but we can only see the time of death. If we try to change someone's destined time of death, then that would mean going against the Creator. So far, those who have done this had to give their lives for it. That's why the doctor warned Minho, never go against the Creator, otherwise your life may also be taken. From today, never try to stop anyone's death, because death is certain in everyone's life, whether it comes sooner or later. If you don't listen to me, then you'll have to give your life. The reason for your chest pain is also because of this. Hearing all this, Minho became very worried. After being discharged from the hospital, he went straight to Sujan and asked her to meet him in the evening. In the evening, they met again at that coffee shop and had long conversations while drinking coffee. At one point, Minho gathered the courage to propose to Sujan, but Sujan got angry and left from there. After that, Minho didn't go in front of Sujan for several days. As a result, Sujan also realized that she had fallen in love with Minho because she didn't feel good when she didn't see him. Finally, Sujan herself confessed her feelings to Minho, and from there, their love story began. The next morning, while Minho was working at his car shop, Kaneda arrived, and he wanted his job back. The owner was reluctant to rehire him at first. Then Minho personally pleaded with the owner to give Kaneda his job back. Because of Minho's request, the owner agreed. Kaneda was very happy about this. He apologized to Minho for his wrongdoing and thanked him for getting his job returned. After that, Minho took Sujan to a park. They spent many beautiful moments there. Then Minho told Sujan the story of that childhood plane crash. He said, "Every passenger on that plane died that day. But I don't understand how I survived hearing this." Sujan laughed and replied, "You survived so you could marry me, and we could live happily with our children." From childhood until now, Minho didn't have a family he could truly call his own. So now all his dreams were about Sujan. Hearing Sujan's words, tears rolled down Minho's cheeks. A few days later, Minho bought 2 rings for Sujan that looked exactly alike. But before giving the ring to Sujan, Minho went to the hospital for a checkup. After all the tests were done, Dr. Kim told him, "You've had chest pain about twice. Once when saving Sujan, and the second time when saving Teshua. Because of that, your heart now has a serious problem. From now on, you must be careful. If you try to save someone from death one more time, you might die yourself." Minho returned home feeling sad and sat quietly on his bed. Meanwhile, Sujan came to his house, worried because she hadn't heard from him all day. Then Minho told her, "Today I went to someone's funeral. That person had a little daughter. The girl is an orphan now. I could have saved her father if I had acted, but I didn't, because I was thinking of myself. So I feel very bad." Minho told Sujan more. "When the plane crashed when I was a child, a little girl asked me for help then too. But before I could do anything, she died. 2 lives were lost because of me. I cannot forgive myself." Sujan comforted Minho so he wouldn't be so upset. One morning, Minho was sitting in a park when a child's ball came rolling to him. As Minho picked up the ball, the child came to retrieve it, and Minho saw that both of the child's hands had become invisible. Several other children in the park and their teacher were in the same condition. When Minho approached to check the children's hands, the teacher took them away. The teacher actually became suspicious of Minho, thinking he might be a kidnapper. A little while later, Minho found a paper there. The paper turned out to be from that children's school. From it, Minho learned that 6 teachers would take all the students on a school trip on the 7:30 a.m. train. Seeing this, Minho felt that something might happen to them on the train, so he hurried to the railway station. When he looked at the passengers on the train, he saw that most of them were already invisible. From all these observations, Minho realized with certainty that the 7:30 a.m. train on the 6th would suffer a terrible accident and that many people would die in that disaster. Then Minho remembered that every morning at 7:30 a.m., Sujan takes that very train to get to the mobile repair shop. Could Sujan be in danger too? Thinking this, Minho rushed to Sujan right away. He ran to her and checked her hands first. To his relief, Sujan was completely fine. No part of her hand or body was invisible. It felt like life returned to him. But a short time later, when Sujan went to prepare breakfast for him, Minho saw that her hand was slowly beginning to disappear. Minho was terrified. He immediately wrapped his arms around Sujan. He didn't say anything else, only promising, "I will not let anything happen to you, no matter the cost." After that, when Minho was lying beside Sujan, he kept thinking to himself that no matter what, he had to get Sujan away from that train on the 6th. But of course, he couldn't tell Sujan the real reason. At that very moment, Minho noticed tears rolling continuously from Sujan's eyes. And when he asked why, Sujan didn't tell him anything. The next morning, Minho told Sujan that tomorrow he was going away on a 3-day trip, and he wanted her to go with him. At first, Sujan didn't want to agree, because if she missed work, she might lose her job. But after Minho pleaded with her a lot, Sujan finally agreed. She also said she would ask one of her co-workers to cover for her during those 3 days, so there wouldn't be any problem. Hearing this made Minho very happy. All he wanted was for the 6th to pass somehow. Then maybe he could save Sujan. After that, Minho went outside and called the school, hoping to cancel the children's trip somehow. But when the school teacher asked him the reason, he couldn't give a proper answer. So the teacher thought he was crazy and hung up the phone. That night, Minho came to stand outside Sujan's house, holding the 2 rings he had bought for himself and Sujan. He thought about throwing them into the water because deep down he knew that if he saved Sujan, he wouldn't survive himself. That meant their dream of marriage would remain unfulfilled. A little while later, Minho went to see Teshua and his wife. He sincerely thanked them because for almost 20 years they had loved him like parents. They raised him with affection and care. Afterward, Minho went home and wrote a letter to Sujan, because if he tried to stop Sujan's death, he was certain he would die. That's why he wrote the letter, so that when Sujan came home, she would be able to read it. But the next morning, all of Minho's plans were ruined, because Sujan sent him a message saying she couldn't go on the trip with him. The co-worker she had asked to cover suddenly became very sick. So now Sujan had to take the train to the mobile shop. This made Minho extremely anxious, and he rushed toward the station. But just as he stepped outside his house, the police arrived. They told him that a teacher had filed a complaint against him, and he needed to go with them to the station. Minho then realized it was that school teacher who had suspected him of being a kidnapper. But right now, he had to go save Sujan. So somehow he tricked the police and ran away, heading straight for the station. When he reached the station, it was already too late. Sujan and all the other passengers had boarded the train. Even if he wanted, he couldn't get them off now. So first, Minho went to the station authorities and begged them to stop the train. But the officer ignored him completely. So Minho quickly got into a taxi, hoping to intercept the train at the next station. Meanwhile, the police were chasing him. Even so, he managed to reach the next station. As he was running inside the station, intense pain began in his chest. Still, Minho arrived before the train did. At that very moment, he noticed construction work happening at the station. Among the workers, several of them were becoming invisible. From this, Minho understood that the accident would probably happen because of the construction machinery. So Minho quickly grabbed a flare from the taxi driver. Somehow, he lit it and ran straight onto the tracks, standing in the middle of the railway. The police and construction workers tried hard to pull him away from there. Meanwhile, the scaffold used for the construction suddenly collapsed, falling onto the station. From inside the train, Sujan saw Minho standing in the middle of the tracks. She screamed and begged the train driver to stop. As soon as the train stopped, the scaffold crashed down onto the railway. Because of that, everyone was saved from the accident. But when Sujan got off the train and ran to Minho, she saw that he wasn't speaking or moving at all. In other words, while saving everyone else, Minho had given up his own life. Sujan was devastated, and she went to him and hugged him tightly. After that, we see a scene from a few days later. Sujan was walking alone in that park, the same park where she had come many times with Minho. And from here we finally learn why Sujan had cried in bed that day. The truth is, just like Minho, Sujan could also see the time of people's deaths. In other words, she had the same kind of power. That day, Sujan had seen Minho's hands and body slowly disappearing, and the next morning when Minho told her about going on a trip, Sujan immediately realized That was the very place where Minho might die. So Sujan deliberately lied to Minho through a message, saying that her co-worker had fallen sick. In reality, Sujan herself wanted to die in that train accident and save Minho, because, just like Minho, she also loved him deeply. Besides, Minho had already saved her life twice before, once from that factory explosion, and the other time from the airplane crash, which means that little girl was no one else. It was actually Sujan. The truth is, because of that airplane accident, Minho had been so mentally traumatized that he didn't even remember what really happened that day. Because on that day, he himself had carried Sujan out of the wreckage with great difficulty, but he didn't remember it. So he believed that maybe he had failed to save that girl. And Sujan had recognized Minho the very day he told her about the airplane accident. That's why this time, Sujan had made up her mind that even if it cost her own life, she would save Minho. But before she could do that, Minho once again gave up his own life to save the love of his life. A few days later, while Sujan was cleaning Minho's room, she found the rings that Minho had bought for the two of them. Which meant that night, Minho hadn't thrown the rings away. He had kept them with him. Along with those rings, Sujan also found a letter that Minho had written for her. In that letter he wrote, "Every time I get a chance in my life to save you, I will save you, even if it costs me my own life. Because you are the first and last love of my life. I love you so much." After reading the letter, Sujan couldn't hold back her tears. Later, when Sujan put on her ring from the pair, she saw that the ring was way too big for her finger. And in the middle of her tears, Sujan laughed, thinking how simple-hearted and silly Minho really was, that he couldn't even buy the right size of ring. But still, Sujan felt truly fortunate. Because, at least once in her life, she had received the true love of a man, a love she could hold on to for the rest of her life.